Good afternoon. Today, our group is exploring the labor force characteristics of immigrants, specifically how education impacts job prospects and wages. With immigration numbers rising, many individuals enter Canada on student visas, aiming to earn a Canadian certification before joining the workforce. However, we see a clear disparity. Those with foreign degrees often face challenges in securing jobs that match their qualifications, while Canadian certifications tend to offer better opportunities. Our analysis highlights these trends and their impacts on immigrant employment outcomes. As immigration continues to shape Canada's labor market, 84% of labor force growth in the past decade has come from immigrant workers. Despite this, many struggle to secure jobs matching their qualifications due to barriers in recognizing foreign credentials. Employers often favor Canadian certifications, making it harder for highly educated immigrants to access fair wages and career growth. Our research examines how education impacts employment outcomes using Statistics Canada data to highlight disparities in job opportunities. By understanding these trends, we can address labor shortages in key industries and explore solutions for a more inclusive workforce, ensuring immigrants contribute fully to Canada's economy.
We conducted our research through a series of steps starting from the topic selection on the first lab session. We did not conduct any surveys as part of our process since we utilized existing data from a reliable foundation to answer our questions and found it adequate enough. Choosing from the options on the Excel sheet shared to the class, we found the labor force characteristics of immigrants as a relevant topic to explore considering the present context of the economy and society. We then curated 5 questions to pivot our whole research into, which we will be going over in the next few slides. Our initial research sources came from the Excel sheet list of topics that had existing data sources from previous cohorts, including a visual media and a manuscript. Further on, additional sources are derived from StatCan for questions needing extra data. With those datasets, we cleaned it in Excel to further clarify and maintain relevancy, and finally, we visualized those clean datasets using Power BI and Excel.
Power BI's data visualization can sometimes be limiting, requiring data reformatting for better usability. Since Power BI structures data through rows rather than columns, users may need to transform their data set for optimal visualization. In order to do this, after inserting the data, users should click the Transform Data option near the bottom right. This opens an editable dataset where specific columns can be selected using Control and left click on your keyboard and mouse. Once selected, you right-click and choose the Unpivot column, which will convert the selected columns into rows, making them more suitable for visualization. Additionally, correlations can be drawn between various factors, such as education and employment. These correlations can provide deeper insights into workforce trends and help in making data-driven decisions.
As an example of doing unpivoting data, we'll be using my work from assignment number 3. And you can see here that there's a bunch of columns here and rows that I'm unable to use to make visualizations. So in the Transform Data tab, you would select all the columns from the ECS all the way to grade 12, right-click, and then unpivot. On this slide, you can now see the newly unpivoted data here, which makes it usable in Power BI and allows you to create graphs such as the one on the right.
For the questions, we examined how educational levels relate to employment outcomes for immigrants in Canada. We focused on the relationships between education, employment, and immigrant status. From the first chart, we can see that a significant portion of new immigrants, those who landed within 5 years, have university degrees, about 115,000 people. That's higher than any other education category. Even immigrants who arrived more than 10 years ago had a strong showing in higher education, with 285,000 university graduates. At the same time, the number of immigrants without a degree or only high school education is much lower, around 22,000 to 32,000. This tells us that Canada is attracting a highly educated immigrant population, especially in recent years. Our second chart compares employment rates by education level and immigrant status. Across every educational level, people born in Canada have a higher employment rate than landed immigrants. The gap is most noticeable for university degree holders, suggesting that foreign degrees are often undervalued or not fully recognized in the Canadian labor market. Interestingly, the employment gap is smaller for those with post-secondary certificates or diplomas, which might mean these type of credentials are more transferable or better aligned with Canadian job market expectations.
What are the employment rates for immigrants with different level of education attainment? Uh, the data highlights how employment rates among immigrants in Canada are influenced by education levels and the length of time they lived in the country. In 2021, among individuals aged 25 to 64 with a bachelor degree or higher, 79% uh, of those recent immigrants, those in Canada less than 10 years, and 80.5% of established immigrants were employed, though the employment rates remain lower than the Canadian-born individuals with the same education level. Additionally, employment rates for recent immigrants aged 25 to 54 tend to increase with higher education, uh, as seen in 2007 when only 45.1% of those without a high school diploma were employed, compared to 67.3% of those with a university degree. The graph to the right compares the number of employed people based on the education level, whether they were born in Canada or immigrated, with the blue bars representing those born in Canada and the orange bars representing landed immigrants, showing that among university degree holders, employment is slightly higher for those born in Canada, but it's still significantly for immigrants. While for both second certificate or diploma holders, the trend is similar, with Canadian-born individuals having a slight edge. What industry do current immigrants under 5 years predominantly get into? Recent immigrants to Canada, those who arrived within the past 5 years, are employed across various industries with notable concentration in specific sectors. According to Statistics Canada, as of 2021, recent immigrants made up 13% of them workers made up in accommodation and the food service sector, 11% in the professional service sector, and 10% in both the manufacturing and transportation sector. These figures that is not made yet indicate that the recent immigrants are particularly predominant in these industries, reflecting their significant contribution to Canada's labor workforce. What is the percentage of immigrants actively participating in the labor force? Labor force participation rates among immigrants in Canada vary based on age, gender, and duration of residency, with mostly, recent immigrants, those in Canada for 10 years or less, aged 25 to 54, having a participation rate of 86% in 2022, while established immigrants, those in Canada for more than 10 years, had a slightly higher rate of 87.3%, which is closer to the 88.5% of participation rates of Canadian-born individuals in the same group, highlighting that immigrants, particularly those in their prime working years, actively contribute to Canada's labor force. And the graph to the right shows that the number of immigrants based on the participation in the labor force and the gender, with the blue bars representing men and pink bars representing women, indicating that in the labor force category, more men are employed or actively seeking work compared to women. Although the difference is not large, in the labor force category, more women are now participating in the workforce, suggesting that immigrant men are more likely to be part of labor force compared to immigrant women who are not engaged in employment or job-seeking activities.
Now, some of the interesting findings that we did find was when comparing the immigrant status to gender, for immigrants who landed earlier than 10 years ago, there's a predominantly more male count. However, in immigrants who have landed 10 years or more, there's a higher female count compared to the male immigrants. Another finding that we found was when comparing the immigrants born in Canada versus those who were landed immigrants in Canada, those born in Canada have no degree certificates or diplomas, while those who have or landed immigrants have a higher educational level, as shown in the graph on the right.
Immigrants play a vital role in Canada's workforce, yet many face significant challenges in securing employment that matches their skills and qualifications. Based on the data, over 55% of recent immigrants hold a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to just around 33% of Canadian-born individuals. However, foreign degrees are often not recognized, making it difficult for immigrants to find jobs that align with their expertise. In the year of 2020, 2021, 79% of recent immigrants with higher education were employed, but barriers like the lack of Canadian work experience continue to limit their job opportunities. While education improves job prospects, it is not always enough to overcome these obstacles. Many immigrants find opportunities in industries such as food, service, professional services, and manufacturing and transportation. Skilled workers also entered fields like engineering and IT, though many are initially forced to start in lower skilled roles. By the year of 2022, 86% of recent immigrants and 87% of established immigrants were in the workforce, a rate almost as high as the 89% employment rate of Canadian-born workers. This shows their eagerness to contribute to the economy. Yet challenges in credential recognition and job matching persist. In conclusion, addressing these barriers will help Canada make better use of skilled immigrant workforce, ensuring a stronger and more inclusive job market for all.
On the data cleaning section, several techniques were used, such as discovering duplicates, formatting issues, and discovering inconsistencies in titles or labels, and also spotting potential outliers in the data set. So 5 total attributes were cleaned. These include scalar ID, a coordinate, a terminated vector, and symbol, each having a brief overview of why they did not relate to our central topic and why the data was not useful. On the left is a picture of the uncleaned attributes, and on the right is a picture of the cleaned attributes. The second in the cleaning was the formatting. Since the attributes were removed, there were blanks in the columns, and these needed fixing, as well as fitting in the rows in the columns. And the unclean data is on the right, and on the next slide is the clean data. And then for the last part, we see educational attainment column is an overview of why it was dirty. And on the left, you can see the dirty image. On the right is the clean, and on the far right is a text of why it was clean.
So from those findings, our 4 recommendations are to improve credential recognition, which simplifies the process for recognizing foreign degrees and offer bridging programs for professional licensing. Another one is boosting skilled immigrant employment, enhancing job matching services, and offer incentives for employers to hire skilled immigrants. Expanding language and certification program to provide language training and promote post-secondary certifications to improve job outcomes. And lastly, to support workforce integration in order to raise employer awareness of immigrant skills and inform equitable hiring practices. Thank you.